Let us offer our consecration to the Lord. Lord, we offer up to you this day as we continue through this 5th week of ordinary time. We ask that your name be glorified in all we do. We ask that we may be docile to your grace, and we ask that we may respond to you as you called us to respond to you at our baptism by opening our ears to hear your word and opening our lips to proclaim your faith to the praise and glory of God the Father. Well, of course, as you just heard, it is Tuesday of the 5th week of Ordinary Time, and we are continuing in this reading from the book of Kings, the first book of Kings, and we're looking at the story of Solomon again in the temple. Now, we have to understand that this is the huge temple that is talked about so much in the New Testament as well as in the Old Testament. The Old Testament is also known as the Jewish Scriptures. And so this is it. This is Solomon's temple. Now, we understand that David had first thought of building a place for the Lord because the Lord was under a tent. And the Lord spoke to David through Nathan, his prophet, and basically said, really, David, don't worry about it. That time will come, but not under your reign. Because David's saying, look, here I am living in a palace, and the Lord is outside in a tent. He said, don't worry about it. That time will come. And so it comes in the time of Solomon, who is David's son, and he builds this huge public project to build the temple. Now, we also want to understand the timing here, because David lived roughly around, this would be about 3,000 years ago. So we're talking David lived, we can basically say 1000 BC. Okay? So obviously Solomon is a little less than that because Solomon is his son, and Solomon works to build the temple, and this represents the presence of God to the Jewish people. Now, understand, they are surrounded, as they will continue to be surrounded right up until basically the reign of the Emperor Constantine. They will be surrounded by Gentiles, what the Jews would call Goyim, and they practice various forms of paganism. And in paganism, you have many gods. But the Jews stand alone in their understanding that there is one God. Occasionally, someone would come along and say there is one God. We've talked about that before. Socrates was one, and the Pharaoh Akhenaten was another, who some actually believe may have been Moses. That's fascinating, although there is no official doctrine, certainly not within the Catholic Church, that the Pharaoh Akhenaten was in fact Moses. But both of them in their different cultures said there was only one God, and both of them were ostracized by their societies. Akhenaten, after he died, and that was one of the reasons why Socrates was executed, because he was considered an atheist. I've told you before that I studied atheism at Boston College, so I jokingly say I learned atheism at Boston College, but it's true. I had one of the foremost authorities on the study of atheism, not being an atheist. As a matter of fact, he was a Jesuit priest, Michael Buckley. Father Michael Buckley, S.J., and he was one of the most foremost authorities, obviously would still be, is if he's still alive, I don't know, on atheism. So there I learned it, and he said, really, the concept that we understand of atheism is only about 200 years old. Prior to that, an atheist was not someone who didn't believe in God, it was someone who didn't believe in our God, or our gods, and that was considered an atheist. That certainly describes Socrates. He was considered an atheist because he only believed in one God. But here among the Jews, we have Solomon building the temple to the one God, because that makes the Jews unique. They believe in the one God. They don't believe in the moon god and the sun god and everything else. And that's one of the key figures of Genesis. People will say Genesis is an instruction of how the earth was created. And of course, we as Catholics don't accept that as a literal explanation. And I always bring up Pope Benedict XVI explained that back during an Easter homily in 2011. We don't believe it as a literal explanation of how the earth was created. And one of the reasons why that's important, because the greatest sin in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, the greatest sin is any form of idolatry. So here, the Bible begins with the story of God creates the moon and the sun and the earth and the stars and everything else. And what is that communicating in people? And what is that communicating to us? There is no moon god, there is no sun god, there is no earth god, there is no sea god, there is no star god, there is no sky god. None of those exist. And for the time, remember this, we understand Genesis reaching its final form maybe sometime after Moses, but we can take Moses as a good time, because that's when the stories we know were pretty well in place. So in the time of Moses, where you're talking obviously about 1,000 years anyway before David, you're talking this time where the Jews are centered on this reality that there's only one God, while all the other cultures of the world are saying, no, there are many. And anyone who came out and said there were many was ostracized by their community. So now Solomon is building a temple, which is a monument to their very belief that there is only one God. That's a powerful, powerful reality. We're going to talk more about this on the other side of the break. You're listening to St. Anthony Overnight from St. Anthony Parish in Allston, Massachusetts, right here on WROL 950 AM, 100.3 FM. And you can also hear us at CatholicAudiomedia.com. That's CatholicAudiomedia.com. We'll be right back right after this. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. And don't forget our website, CatholicAudiomedia.com. You can check out our website, check out the archives of the show, check out our Substack newsletter. You can send us feedback. You can donate to the show if you like. And don't forget, you can tell people, you can encourage people to have a part in creating the homily. Let people know they'd see input for homily at CatholicAudiomedia.com. And if you'd like to contact us, you can contact us directly at St. Anthony Parish, radio outreach, or however you want to explain it, 43 Holton, Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. That's 43 Holton Street, Allston, Massachusetts, 02134. So you want to check that out. And don't forget, we are here, and if you'd like to donate to the show in support of the parish, which sponsors it, that would be great. Or better yet, if you want to come to Mass, we'll just come by. We're here. You have a standing invitation. I always get that wrong. Invitation to our 10 o'clock a.m. Mass on Sundays. Well, here we are. We are checking out this powerful story of the building of the ark. This is what we're looking at this week. And Solomon building the ark. And one of the things he brings out is he recognizes that this is going to be the throne of God, but God's, as we talked about yesterday, God's presence is not limited by the size of the building. Now, you can understand this is a huge building, but as big it is, as powerful it is, saying this is the throne of, as the Jews would explain, the one deity, the one God. But as we know, and Solomon explains, however, he says, if the heavens and the highest heavens cannot contain you, how much less this house which I have built? God is omnipresent, as we learned in the seminary. He is immanent and transcendent. So he's omnipresent. He is within us, and he is everywhere. And so in light of that, even though we have this huge building, as big as it is, As big as it is, let me pronounce that and do that correctly. As big as it is, it's really still does not show well the majesty of God, but it does it in a powerful way that we can understand. And this is the great temple. Now, I've talked to you before about this powerful temple and what it means. Now, we talked yesterday about how the temple was destroyed 3 times. So what we're hearing about today, where Solomon builds this temple that is built for the first time. He is the son of David who imagined a temple, but God said, no, that is not the time. Don't worry about it, David. When I need a temple, I'll let you know. And so he didn't put it exactly that way. But anyway, so then Solomon comes and builds the temple. It is destroyed by King Nebuchadnezzar and his men in 587 BC. King Cyrus comes, conquers Nebuchadnezzar 40 years later, finds the Jews who had been living in exile there and says, go home. Go back to your land, and helps them rebuild the temple. The temple is rebuilt. And it is, again, the center of everything that is related to the Jewish faith. There's a fascinating story we've talked about before, how the Greeks decide to build one big happy religion, and in doing so, they take over the temple and they put pagan figures in there, which upsets the Maccabeans who create the Maccabean revolt. They get the temple back, and there is the story of Hanukkah related to it. They only had enough oil for the vigil light to last 1 day, but through the power of God, it lasts 8 days. That's where Hanukkah comes from. And then God's presence, his liturgical presence, you could say, is restored in the temple, but we know God is everywhere, and this is exactly what Solomon says. And then the Romans come along and they destroy the temple a 3rd time, and then it has never been rebuilt to this day. Presently, if you see a picture of Jerusalem, you'll see this structure with a gold dome on it. That's the Dome of the Rock. It is in the Muslim faith, the belief that that's where Muhammad last stood before he was taken up to heaven, so that's why that's such an important place. There's a Jewish rule that you cannot destroy another faith's temple to build your own, so that prevents a new temple from existing there, and there you have. So that is that powerful place, and that is the exact same place that we're talking about in today's readings. And the Wailing Wall, which is at the base of all of that, is the last remaining remnant of this temple we're talking about today. We'll talk more tomorrow. Have yourself a blessed day. In Cristo vivimos.